Hello everyone. Welcome to the reopened Horace Williams Airport in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We're back on runway 27 in a Piper Archer, and today's video is going to be talking about different options for the traffic pattern itself. Traditionally, the traffic pattern for both runways had put the downwind leg on the north side of the airport. In this video, we're going to explore other options. We're going to start off with the traditional right-hand traffic pattern for runway 27, and we're going to incorporate the noise abatement procedure that we came up with in the previous video. 60 knots, rotate. And we're going to let the airplane continue climbing on the upwind until traffic pattern altitude of 1,500 feet. Now we are leveling off the airplane. You can hear the power coming back. And now we're making our crosswind turn. You can see big open fields over here. Level the wings for a second. Check for traffic in both directions, and then we turn downwind. Again, we're turning crosswind to downwind over this big field, and our landmark out the nose is the high school. Now, as pilots, we generally like to gauge where the runway is in terms of looking down the wing, where the runway bisects the wing. Typically about 2/3 down the wing is a good, what we call sight picture. You can see right here that runway is pretty much exactly 2/3 down the wing, which makes that high school a good distance. In this vicinity, once we're past the high school, we're over the Carolina North Forest. Then we start approaching the residence again. The good news is, as you can hear right there, we started throttling back. Once we get a beam the far end of the runway, that's when we pull the power back, we start putting in the flaps, slowing down the airplane and beginning our descent down towards the runway. In this quadrant, there are a fair amount of residents under this patch of trees. But again, we're at a much more reduced power setting, and our noise footprint would not be exaggerated very much in this area. Now we're turning what's called our base leg, which is parallel to the crosswind leg, putting down our flaps, slowing down the airplane. And now we're going to fly over Aura Chapel Hill. On our final leg, we're now at 70 knots. You can see those two lights to the right side of the runway. One is red, one is white. That means we're on the proper glide path down to the runway. In this case, it's a 4-degree glide slope, which puts us 150 feet above the closest building of Aura Chapel Hill. Every building behind it, we're somewhere between 150 to 200 feet above the building as we're flying over. We've now positioned a camera on the roof of one of the buildings at Aura Chapel Hill to give you an idea of what it would look like for an airplane on the proper glide slope to be clearing the buildings. Like I said, the buildings towards the back of the property we'd be clearing by at least 200 feet. The closest building would be cleared by 150 feet, 3 times the height of the building. And we're coming in for a nice touchdown. And that's what we call a greaser. The next pattern we're going to demonstrate is the traditional left traffic pattern for runway 9, also incorporating the noise abatement procedure off of runway 9. Rotating at 60 knots, letting the airplane accelerate. And once we get to 600 feet, we're going to start that right turn to a heading of 110 degrees. You can see the development off the left side. We're not overflying it, reducing our noise footprint by 10 to 20%, avoiding the schools. Now there's lots of development off the nose of the airplane, lots of malls, lots of shopping centers. Fortunately, our next landmark is the lake off the left side. Once we find ourselves abeam the lake, then we'll turn left and begin our crosswind leg before we reach all the malls. 1,500 feet, lower the nose, reduce the power. And immediately the airplane becomes much quieter. Now we begin our downwind leg. Turning crosswind to downwind over the lake. And we're going to use the high school once again as our landmark of how far away to be from the runway. You can see campus just off the left wingtip, again highlighting the convenience of this airport to downtown Chapel Hill. Now the good thing about this traffic pattern is as we're flying over the high school and the neighborhood right after that, the high school is just is abeam the end of the runway, which is where we begin to power down the engine, which you can hear right there. So just before we get to the neighborhoods, we start slowing the airplane down, reducing the noise, start putting in the flaps, start our downwind to base turn. There are some houses here, but again, we're slower, we're quieter. We have like 25% power at this point, so we're not that loud at all. From base to final, at this point there's very few developments. We're back above the Carolina North Forest. So there are pros and cons to flying on the north side of the airport. There are some developments, but we have the lake, we have the high school, we have the forest to help buffer the sound. Now we're going to try some unconventional traffic patterns that were not flown before in the airport's history. We're just taking off runway 27. We're going to do a left traffic pattern. We're still going to abide by our noise abatement procedure, so we're going to climb up to 1,500 feet before turning left. And we'll explain why this could be a potential traffic pattern that we could use. Carolina North Forest. The only people we're bothering with our noise are some hikers and the squirrels. Leveling 1,500 feet, reducing the power, and now we're turning left over a school out here. Now if you look at a map of Chapel Hill, a satellite map of Chapel Hill, you'll see that on the south side of the airport there appear to be more residential areas, more houses than on the north side. Why would we fly over more houses? Well, if you look at who are in these houses, a lot of the houses on the south side of the airport is student housing, or housing that is rented by students. It's not permanent residents who have to live with this noise every day. There are two options. You can either have the traffic pattern for both runways on the south side, or you could split it up for one runway, have it on the north side, on one runway, have it on the south side. That way you're distributing the noise footprint and not putting all the load on one part of the population. You can see out the right wing, many more houses. You can see campuses right there. If anything, having the traffic pattern on the south side reminds people that this is indeed a university airport that is convenient to the university. We're abeam the runway, powering down one notch of flaps. And you can see lots of houses down here, lots of apartments, but that's exactly what they are. Apartments, houses for rent. People that live here from August to May. It looks like it's more densely populated, and it is. But the politics are a little bit different. 20-year-old college students renting an apartment are not the demographic of the people that would likely complain about the noise. They're the people who are going to buy cars and modify the exhaust to make it louder anyway, so they don't mind noise. Here's another look of the approach coming over Aura Chapel Hill. We're on our glide path of 4 degrees, which is what it was before the airport closed. Here's one of the further buildings so you can get a sense of the clearance over the back side of the property. And as you can see, plenty of clearance. Lastly, we're going to try a right-hand traffic pattern for runway 9. Again, observing our noise abatement procedures. Climbing straight to 600 feet. Upon reaching 600 feet, right turn to 110 degrees. Here comes the turn. And here's what this turn looks like from the roof of an Aura Chapel Hill building. Turning away from the development. Reducing our noise footprint. Now, because this turn to the right cuts into our crosswind leg a little bit, we're just going to turn at 1,200 feet. Because of that offset, we're basically going to do one big turn from the upwind leg into the downwind leg. And there are some residents down here. You can see the apartments. Beautiful view of the airport out the right side. Beautiful view of campus out the left side. And that's what it's all about. Jordan Lake out there in the distance. Such an optimum location for an airport. All right, there's a beam the end of the runway. And you can see houses. But again, at this point in the traffic pattern, we've reduced our power. Instead of 50% power, we're at 25% power coming down towards the runway. On this end, we're keeping our turn inside of the school over there. And just to give you an idea, coming down, we're about 1,500 RPM. In the pattern, we're 2,100 RPM. And in the climb, we're 2,500 RPM. Just to kind of compare where the noise normally is. And at this point, we're back over the Carolina North Forest. Back on our 4-degree glide slope. And so those are the 4 options for traffic patterns at the reopened Horace Williams Airport. You can either keep the pattern as it was on the north side with some added noise abatement procedures. We can put it on the south side with the noise abatement procedures. Or we can mix and match, assign one runway to the north and assign one runway to the south.